Well, hello, I'm Nelson Liu and thanks for joining us for Western Perspective. This week on the program, for some it's a bold, ambitious plan for a new port at Fremantle Harbour that's ahead of its time. For others, it's environmental vandalism. But there's been opposition to its construction with concerns that it will damage the marine habitat, despite government claims its port strategy will boost trade, jobs and the economy. So does it need to be preserved or is there room for development? Ivan Leung went out on the water to investigate.
Boating and fishing is part of everyday Australians' leisure. For Mike and Ian, fishing in Cockburn Sound is a way of life.
I was brought up fishing from when I was about the age of 4 by my granddad, and he pretty much instilled in us that we had to look after the fishing environment that we lived in. So yeah, I've been fishing for 43 years now.
But Mike and the rest of the community fear that boating and fishing in Cockburn Sound will become distant memory if the construction of the proposed outer harbour goes ahead. Under the plan, the current coastline on Woodman Point will be transformed to Perth's new harbour, second to the historic Fremantle Port. Mike is part of the community action group The Fish Army, led by fishing tackle store owner and group co-convener Tim Barlow, who are lobbying against the proposed harbour.
When we found out they were looking at putting an extra port, an outer harbour, we weren't very happy. So I had a barbecue with Tim Barlow, who owns a tackle store. Over a few beers and a barbecue, we started the Fish Army. And within a week, we had over 3,000 people that supported us.
The group argued that marine life will be disrupted, threatening the breed of pink snapper fish. They're also saying the new harbour is not needed because Fremantle Port is yet to reach its capacity.
It's not needed! We believe that there will be severe issues. In 2006, the EPA actually gave about 16 reasons, I think it was, why there shouldn't be an outer harbour, because there actually is already part of an outer harbour here. We've got Alcoa, we've got the grain terminal, there's some bulk carriers. So we do have some parts of an outer harbour. We just don't want what they're proposing because the damage that will be done and also some of the places they're looking at taking away.
So we've established an environmental work stream which is looking at all of the values in and around our 3 locations of Fremantle, Kwinana and Bunbury, both from a marine and a terrestrial point of view. The important part is to understand what we're working with first and then to look at infrastructure impacts on that.
Nicole Lockwood is the chairwoman of the Department of Transport's Westport Task Force.
We're using a number of global best practice frameworks about how we optimise the environment to make sure that we minimise impact, and we're very, very mindful of understanding how we work with the local ecosystem to ensure we mitigate that.
She says Westport is working closely with WA's leading environmental agencies to avoid, manage and mitigate environment risks. With Perth's population set to double in the next 3 decades, the task force's key role is to come up with a modern port plan that supports Perth's future freight needs.
Our role is to look at the long-term freight and supply chain needs of the south of the state. So we're looking at Fremantle, Kwinana and Bunbury over a 50 to 100 year time horizon. So we're looking at port, road, rail and intermodal facilities over that time and looking at the optimum supply chain that we'll need for the state's future.
The task force also emphasised that its role is to provide a new port strategy and not necessarily a new port.
So the important thing with this is we're looking at a long-term time horizon. So it's clear that at some point in the future we'll need additional port facilities. When that is, we're still trying to determine, and that's part of our phase 2 of our process. What we're looking at in the short term is what are the constraints in the current network and what are the infrastructure opportunities to unlock those constraints, and then when will new facilities be needed, and that's certainly something we'll be tackling through next year.
Meanwhile, the Fish Army also made their voice heard in a task force panel.
We've made it very clear that the Fish Army, which there's probably nearly 2,000 of us now, which are West Australian anglers and also environmentalists have now come on board, can see that what we're actually trying to save, we need to get that through the task force, and the task force are listening.
But whatever the differences stakeholders may have, both sides are encouraging the public to have a say on Cockburn Sound's future.
So we've got an online portal. It's through My Say Transport, and Westport has a page on that. So I encourage people to get on the web and have a look. It allows you to interact with some of our mapping tools and hear a bit of the history of what we're working on. And we'll be launching all of our public documentation on that site.
And we encourage all West Australians to jump on board. If you're an angler, please jump on board and tell them that you want to save the sound. And by doing that, it just gives more information that the task force can use, and hopefully common sense will prevail and we'll save the sound for future generations.
And that's all the time we have for WP. Ivan and Danielle, it's back to you.
Thanks, Nelson. And that's our news for this week. You can follow the latest on our website and Facebook page.
From Danielle, myself, and the rest of the team until 8 o'clock next Sunday, a very good evening to you.
Good night.